and the book is practical. It's not just, there's a lot of talk out there, there's a lot of theory out there. We need handles, and this book gives us handles.
Yeah, and it's not, for me, I actually didn't even touch the theological side, because actually all across the theological spectrum, we stink at developing female leaders. So that's sort of a moot point for what I was interested in talking about.
And your church, you need to go do your homework.
Yes, I want to support
you
you and your theology, wherever that is, but wherever you land, do a good job doing that. So I don't have a theological agenda, but I do have an agenda for our churches to have clarity around articulating our beliefs and seeing that belief fully integrated into the effectiveness of our church. Because the lower you get from the leadership top, the lower into ministry you get, which is where most women are serving, the more confusion there is, the more sideways energy, the more resistance from other women and men to their leadership. And so as leaders, high-level leaders, it's our responsibility to articulate clearly what we believe and make sure that is being put to effectiveness all throughout the organizational structure.
The word that comes to mind when you're saying that for me is consistency.
It's integrity.
Yes. It's really that congruent. We're saying this, we're going to live this out, not just up here, but throughout the organization.
I think one of the biggest hindrances to female leadership in the church right now is organizational hypocrisy. We're saying one thing, but we're doing something else, and their experience does not match what's happening from the platform or what they're being told their value or contribution can be. Disconnection.
Put some examples on that. I don't want details, but when you say organizational hypocrisy, so someone is espousing this from the platform, but women are not.
So because it's a theological issue, let me take on sort of the more egalitarian. If someone is more of a theology that women and men are more equal, women can do all sorts of levels of leadership. So in those organizations, what I found is even in some denominations who have been ordaining women since the 1890s, when I look at their higher level leadership, they're still all men. There's women sprinkled kinda throughout. Most of them don't have titles that would be indicative that their theology is about female leadership and authority in the church. They're not carrying the term pastor. They're not being paid equally. They're given girl titles.
So it feels like lip service. We're saying it, but we're not doing it.
To the women especially, it does. And so the whole time they're thinking, well, if that's true about this belief, what does that mean about the other things you're teaching me? Is it all just are you just telling me what you think I want to hear?
Okay, so that's an interesting thought, though, in that for pastors, leaders who might be struggling with this, there's a real power in the congruency, because if you're practicing what you preach in this area, it really does give you a credibility in other areas.
Absolutely. Integrity isn't like a one topic issue.
Right.
So integrity is about, like, when a bridge is integrous, it means it's consistent all the way across.
Yes.
And so if we are willing to compromise our theology in one setting, we're going to be willing to compromise it in another. And that's why even in conservative environments, I am very hopeful for the empowerment of more women, because I think if we could just get theology clarified, even if the roles are more limited than a more progressive church, we are not coming close to empowering women in even those areas.
Yeah.
So even the more traditional roles like women's ministry or children's ministry, those leaders are underpaid, they're under-resourced, they're under-held accountable, and so they don't come to conferences, they don't get invited to the table. And so if we actually believe women are empowered to lead other women, then they should be representing those women in decision making. They should be given the same amount of funding. They should be trained up. They should have theology degrees. They're teaching Bible studies to 61% of your congregation.
Right.
You don't want that leader trained in the Bible?
Right.
So that's why I'm saying it's the consistency of what we believe. We either believe you're empowered to teach, and so therefore we're going to train and resource you correctly, or we don't.
But what I like about what you're saying, though, is that it really does, this applies across the theological spectrum when it comes to women in leadership, which we're clearly admitting the church is not all in agreement on. But you're saying, no matter where you land in this spectrum, be clear, be really clear about where you stand so that everybody knows, and then live it out.
Yes. It's the consistency that's attractive. It's the consistency that you can flourish under.